probably used an API today without knowing it. If you used the weather app, if you used Uber, Netflix, used Gmail, most modern day applications, they all use API calls. So what is an API? An API is basically a set of rules that lets two pieces of software talk to each other, regardless of what type of software it could be. So let's use a restaurant analogy to understand what APIs are. So let's say you go to a restaurant, right? You take a seat, you get a menu, or you ask the waiter for the menu, or it's right there on the table. The waiter tells you hi and everything. You browse through the menu. The menu has all of the available dishes and food items that the restaurant serves. So you browse through the menu, you let the waiter know what you are trying to order, right? You tell the waiter what you want, right? The waiter in turn communicates your order with the kitchen. Now, within that time, if you and in turn, the kitchen would prepare your order based on how you want and based on the specifications that they prepare those orders, right? So same at the same time, if you need anything as well, say you need water, you need to make payment, you need to change your order. If you change your mind, you let the waiter know anything, right? So the waiter is the bridge between you and the kitchen. So he brings back the waiter goes back, gets your food, brings back your food. You need water, he brings back water. You need to make a pay. You need to make payment for your food. He comes, he collects your payment. So imagine this waiter was not there, right? Imagine we didn't have a waiter in the kitchen, and every time you wanted your food, you had to go all the way to the kitchen and go and let the cook know, because the cook is one person, know what you want. And every time you needed something, you had to go and come back. Would you want to go to the restaurant? Probably not. Or let's say every time you're sitting here, you wanted something, the cook had to leave the kitchen and come all the way to your table to attend to you. Everything would be slow. This system would be so inefficient and redundant. So API or a waiter solves this issue. Same thing with software applications. So um, previously, modern day applications, almost everyday modern application uses APIs because modern day applications interact with multiple different services and multiple different applications. Think about applications such as Uber, Netflix. If you want to build Uber, Netflix, Amazon, and you have to write a lot of logic for a lot of components as like how the application works, how services route, how payments is collected. It takes a lot to write payment logic, for example, because say Uber, what do we use Uber for as an application? What is Uber known for example? For rides, right? Say you are making a request to Uber to get a ride, and you get a response that shows okay, it's going to take X amount of minutes to get your ride. But in the back end, a whole lot of logic goes on. So this, what I explained, is just to make this simple, right? Obviously, this is not, it's not as simple as this. There's a lot that goes into it. If you want me to make a video on how Uber works, let me know in the comment section. I don't think anybody wants that, but I could do that. So um, what happens is it makes an API call, you get a request, but now if you had to write all the logic, how the back end works, and you had to write code for payment systems, right? It's going to take a lot. First off, it's going to take so long to build the application, right? So that's why Uber would rather go to a company such as Stripe and say, hey, Stripe, I'm building my Uber application, right? And in this Uber application, I will need to collect payments. So Stripe will say, okay, you could integrate Stripe into Uber. Just like if you build a website right now, say you build a website, you can collect payments on your website. On your website, you don't have to build a payment system. You would go to Stripe. Stripe will give you something called an API key, and you will take that API key and integrate it into your website, and that is how you would be able to collect payments. Just as if you need a shipping service, you could go to a shipping website, get a shipping API service, and integrate. So let's wrap this up with a weather app example. So if you use the weather app on your phone, for example, right? The weather app that's on your phone, every time, let's say the developer who developed the weather app, there is public APIs out there, just as like payment APIs, which is Stripe, for example, which develop an API for payment. So they have specifically taken their time as a business and developed a payment service. Now this payment service can be integrated with other microservices and other services that other businesses offer. So other companies now come to them. So you can go to another company that does a weather API. This developer would go to a company that does a weather API, and that company would have a server where they have information, a remote server where they have information on the weather today. So every time you are trying to request information on the weather app, right? What happens is he would just integrate the API in his app, so it gets the information from the weather on a remote server using an API call, right? And then sends back the response showing you today's weather on your phone. Now, the API would be configured, which is what we say it's a set of rules that lets two pieces of software talk to each other. So this will be configured on how they integrate together. APIs are everywhere in apps, websites, and system design. So again, APIs are just the way applications communicate and talk to each other. It could be internally, it could be externally. It is the same way with modern day applications. And I would make a dedicated video on microservices to explain microservice architecture and how they work. And these videos are just to get you an introduction and foundations into IT, so that once we start talking about cloud, DevOps, and all of the advanced topics, these topics would not slow you down. If this video helped you, thank you, and let me know if you want a dedicated video on a specific topic.